Unemployed dad stole my $9,000 college scholarship money to pay for a hotel, then lied about it for months. Now threatened to K himself when I confronted him. For context, I am currently a college freshman. I am on a full ride to my university. Every semester, I get a check sent to my house to pay off my housing costs, which is about $9,000. My unemployed father got evicted from my old address because he wasn't paying rent, so my family started living in a hotel. I was questioning how they were paying for the hotel, considering it was $150 a night. Turns out, my father used my college check to cash out and pay for the hotel for 2 months. I begged him to pay off my college housing costs for 2 months straight. He lied to me, telling me that it was attached to some funds, which were hard to get out. Very confusing, but keep in mind I have absolutely zero financial literacy and my father never went into depth. I brushed it off, hoping that everything would work for the best. My college housing gave my father a deadline to pay off housing costs, November 1st. I was stressed for 2 months, unable to eat well, sleep, socialize, etc. If my dad doesn't pay it off, I may or may not have to drop out. When the deadline hit, I called my dad and asked him why he hadn't paid off my housing costs. He finally revealed that he used the check on the hotel we were living in. I was furious and I started interrogating him like a prosecutor. He blamed the family for being responsible for using my college money, not himself, and also blamed me. He lent me allowance money for 2 months, telling me that it was from my relatives when it was actually from my $9,000 housing check. I asked him why he would do this and he said that he didn't want to stress me out. I cried telling him I worked way too hard in high school for me to drop out. I said that he owed me an apology 3 times over the phone, but he refused because he thought he had done nothing wrong since he was providing for the family. I asked him again and he said sorry in a mocking voice. I told him that he was full of shit and he started saying that he wants to put a gun to his head and kill himself and it will all be on me. This is not the first time he has done that. I told him to do it and I hung up. My mom called me and I informed her about the situation. She told me to apologize to my dad and I told her, as psychotic as I may sound, I have no remorse, especially after what he did. My mom threatened to disown me but I somehow mended things with them for 3 weeks. It is currently Thanksgiving break and my father still didn't pay off my check and he said that he would get money Saturday to pay it off. My mom told me again to apologize to him after he paid my housing costs, and I said I would avoid conflict. But I think I'm way too stubborn to apologize, especially because I genuinely think I have nothing to be sorry for. My dad never fully apologized and made a joke out of me to the family. Comments where Op has replied. Depressed, wizard. Whose name was on the check? Sounds like fraud to me if your name is on that check. Oop, I'm honestly not sure because I never physically saw the check. All I know was that it was mailed to my old address and my neighbor gave the check to my father, who proceeded to cash it out. North Conclusion 331. Is this your first check? If not, what was the name in the old checks? Oop, yes, this is my very first check. The next one is coming this January to my old address. I told my father if he didn't give it to me in January I would report him and he said he would give it to me. Although I don't completely trust him, mainly because he did something similar to my older sister resulting in her dropping out, I have a lot of leverage on him. Expression little. Contact the office that sent out the check to see what name they put on the check and on the envelope to send to you. If he opened your mail, that's a crime, and if he cashed a check with your name on it, that's also a crime. Also get a P.O. box and get the next one sent there. Oop, there's also a huge part that I left out regarding this situation. My mother is an illegal immigrant and if my dad goes to jail or gets charged, then she would have to go back to her country. I did threaten my dad with this but my mother said that she would flat out disown me if I did. I also have little siblings too so I would not like for them to have to take the fall for this. I think I will contact the school and ask them to put the mail somewhere safer, probably my dorm address. Update 1. First and foremost, immediately after this happened, I managed to get a separate debit card without my parents knowing. I don't have a job now, but I'm looking to get one later on in the semester. I didn't go to the financial aid center because my dad somehow managed to pay me back. I'm going under the assumption that it's through my grandmother's social security checks. Last December, after weeks of calling my father to make up for my scholarship money and pay me back, he finally sent me a check for $9,000. The check came in my dorm mail around midnight. I was asleep by then and my dad was spam calling my phone to tell me it was in the mail. I didn't call him back until 1 in the afternoon because I had an exam that day. He started cursing at me, telling me how he couldn't sleep all night because I didn't answer my phone. I talked back and said, "The stress you put me through for 3 months by lying about my scholarship check is nothing compared to the stress you went through for a day." He started insulting me in every way possible, telling me that I was spoiled. I swore back saying, "Are you effing serious?" and he hung up. Moments later, my dad made my mom call me because he didn't want to argue with me. She screamed at me saying that I should always have respect for him as a father and that I should apologize for swearing. I said that yes, I did swear at him, but he did too, calling me bunch of slurs and whatnot. She also accused me of purposely ignoring them when I made it clear several times that I was asleep and I had an exam at 9 in the morning, hence not calling them at midnight. I told her that we shouldn't even have this talk because he was clearly in the wrong in this entire situation and every other kid would have gone to the financial aid center and my dad would have gotten in trouble. My mom misunderstood me for saying that I was going to report my dad. She had a mental breakdown and hung up. Moments later, my dad called and told me to go ahead and report him because I would be going to jail instead of him because he sent me some of the money from the check, which is bullshit. I called him out on his bullshit and he said that he was permanently severing ties so I could learn my lesson. He hung up. I didn't call them for a week until I realized that I didn't have a place to stay for winter break, my dorm closed. I swallowed my pride and called them back to apologize. They said they'll accept me back to the family. This honestly still keeps me up at night, but I literally didn't have a choice but to stay with them over break. Over break, they've noticed that I'm way more cold and distant towards them and they still wonder why. Luckily, I got the $9,000 check from my university to pay for this semester's housing fees. The best thing that came out of this is that I ended up reconnecting with my estranged sister, F25. Long story short, my father financially abused my sister for years, maxing out her credit cards and leaving her $20,000 in debt. They cut all ties a year ago after my sister started dating a guy they didn't approve of. When I was on good terms with them, they painted her as the bad guy, telling me that she betrayed them by choosing her boyfriend over the entire family. I also didn't know that my dad financially abused her. Turns out she was in the same situation I was in and ended up dropping out because my dad didn't let her take out a student loan. I talked to my sister and she said that she was honestly glad that she severed ties with them because she's finally financially independent, even if she's not financially stable. We're closer than ever and I probably consider her as a shoulder to lean on. Mentally, I'm really not doing well. I'm generally stoic, but this is taking a hard emotional toll on me because my family was my world. Before college, I always knew my father was insane, but my mother was my ride or die. I told her everything. I helped her through her marital problems. She told me everything. And the fact that she chose my abusive, unemployed father, the man that she always talked about wanting to divorce, over her daughter is heartbreaking. She still expects me to be her armchair therapist and she told me she wants me to act like how I did before. I told her over break that no matter what she does, she will never mend back the trust I had for her then. And my father, despite his flaws, I never expected him to use my check. He put such a huge emphasis on education and told me he wanted me to have the life he never had. And knowing he would sacrifice my education just so he could live in a fancy $150 hotel is very disheartening. Recently, I've been very isolated. I still talk to a few people, my grades are falling, and I haven't been eating or sleeping well. Maybe this situation should be a wake-up call for me, but I've come to the point where I'm completely apathetic about everything. I refrain from drugs thankfully, but even so, I feel like my life is on autopilot. Comments where Op has replied. Me zero mio. The best thing you can do for yourself is to complete your education. Stay focused on school and strive to do your best. Make friends and maintain contact with your sister. Also, seek out counseling at your school. They can help you deal with your family issues. Old Afternoon 2459. Lock your credit. Get a P.O. box. Make sure you have your legal documents. Melissa 3670. You can order a birth certificate from the state you were born in. If you have that and a license, you can go to the Social Security office and get your SS card. Oop, if my dad gives me my legal documents. Update 2. My dad stole my college scholarship money months ago. Now he's not getting a single penny from me. As you may or may not know, I made 2 posts several months ago about my father using up my college money. I also want to clear up some confusion about the posts. My parents are religiously married through the Catholic Church in another country, but they never got legally married because my dad doesn't want my mother to get a green card. And yes, in some colleges like mine, the broken education system in America still use checks, but most people use direct deposit. I am glad to say that he no longer has access to my finances and I am in low contact with him. Thanks to the advice of this subreddit, I got my social security card and other documents months before I left for college. I also managed to get my first job. I distanced myself from my parents and I took a lot of time to reflect on them and their actions. They also distanced themselves from me after I finally put my foot down and refused to give them financial assistance. They said that I was self-absorbed and once again my father told me he would kill himself if I didn't help him. And this time, instead of telling him to off himself, I told him that's a decision he would make and I can't be responsible for it. I realized no matter what I do, they'll never change. They will always be the type of people to financially leech off of others using their suicide threats and weaponizing self-pity, but they're too emotionally stunted to see the faults of that. Their psyche is so twisted and I spent a lot of time mourning for the parents I never had. They were never meant to be parents, but they're also people. Sometimes people like them exist. As for my mother, she completely turned her back on me and said that I was a TV villain for not giving my father the money he deserved for raising me and my siblings. I told her he was never emotionally present as a father and neither was she. Not just from the suicide threats, but also by being a threat to our well-being. She used to treat me as a friend and therapist, but rarely as a daughter. She used me to complain about the emotional and mental abuse my dad inflicted on her. But at the same time, she was also the person to turn her back on me in a blink of an eye, if it meant protecting my father's feelings and making him happy. Sometimes, she went as far as to attack me or my siblings if we did anything to make him crossed. I guess I still have a lot of pity for her considering that she is an illegal immigrant in an abusive situation, but it doesn't outweigh the damage. It was impossible to communicate with her since he was her own little world. I don't think she really loved me or saw me as a person or a child, just an outlet for her emotional dysfunction. Recently my mother called me and lied about my dad being ill so they could rake a couple of bucks from me again. I told them to find their own source of money and hung up. I check up on my little brothers every now and then. They're currently still living in the hotel. While their physical safety isn't harmed, I still struggle with the guilt of leaving them behind and I'm unclear on what the future holds for them. This past year, I learned what it meant to be independent, not just financially, but to be free from the mental control of them and making those decisions for myself. Needless to say, I'm happier, I'm surrounded with good and caring people, my grades aren't great but better, and I'm finally in a good place right now. In the end, everything's gonna be alright. And even if it's not the end. Comments where Op has replied. Boris Lovechild. Any chance of getting the money back? Oop, I got some of it back through a family friend. I'm working my ass off to make up for the remaining sum of money. Disclosing, Nina 1876. Stop feeling guilty. You are the child. If anything, be embarrassed that your parents are pathetic. And even that's nothing to be embarrassed about. Cocoa, almonds, rock. Good for you. It takes a lot of strength to do what you're doing. A lot. I know things are tough right now, but you've got the outlook and strengths to dig in and build a successful life. I hope your younger siblings have the same fortitude you do. You can try to help them in the future, but if they're not willing to help themselves, they could turn into your parents and drain you dry. Stay vigilant. Good luck, and keep us updated. Oop, my biggest fear in the future is that my parents will use my younger siblings for their benefit and leech off of them. From what I know, that's pretty much still happening with my older siblings. Next story. Son's girlfriend called to say she's going to propose, but my son already has a ring and plans to propose first and I'm the only one who knows both secrets. My daughter-in-law, a pediatrician named Lexi, called me today with the most wonderful news. She intends to propose to my son. Lexi is such a sweet, hardworking, thoughtful, no-nonsense woman, and my son always remarks on how loved and respected he feels by her. I have never seen him happier. It warms my heart to see him so serious with someone after all these years. She is truly the daughter I have always dreamed of. I raised my son as a single mother for 29 years and had to be both mom and dad to him. His father walked out after his birth. Seeing him so deeply in love and respected by someone as amazing as Lexi fills me with pride and joy. I get to be girly with her and share my love of jewelry, which I plan to leave entirely to her. The entire family adores her and they are all excited to meet her. I already call her my daughter-in-law and consider her part of the family. Little does she know that my son has already bought her a ring and plans to propose during her birthday vacation in September. I am so happy for them. I cannot wait to see their futures develop as spouses and, eventually, as parents when the time comes. My heart is overflowing with happiness and excitement for their journey ahead. Comments where Op has replied. Backwoods Diva, we are now all shipping them and cannot wait for updates. Please try and find out the information of when she is doing it and tell him so he can make sure her ring is there too. She's putting in that work, she should show off her bling from him to lol. Oop, she actually told me how she is proposing. It's also during the birthday vacation. She said she is creating a 2-chapter book with custom art of all their firsts in chapter 1 and the proposal and ring in chapter 2. She is very creative. Fourth the Greek Knight, this is such a wonderful story. I hope your son and future daughter-in-law have many, many happy years together. As a dad, I cannot understand how a dad can walk out on his own flesh and blood. When my son was born I got the answer that every person seeks. What is the purpose of my life? To me it was being this kid's daddy. Congrats to all of you. Oop, I was his third marriage. He had 2 children in his second. The child support was bleeding him dry, didn't want to be cruel and asked for the minimum support. Supported my son through uni, law school, and his masters all by myself. Update 1, June 26, 2024. My son, Sean, recently reached out to me with a request. He asked if I could take Lexi ring shopping with me since I'm in the process of designing a new ring for myself. He thought it would be the perfect opportunity for Lexi to see different styles and find her ideal ring. Sean shared with me that Lexi prefers something simple and not overly flashy. She told him, anything bigger than 2 carats is for ego. I would just like a simple solitaire under 2 carats with no fancy band and a meaningful engraving. While Sean, being a successful environmental attorney, wanted to splurge on something beautiful and expensive for Lexi, her preferences are clear. A little backstory, When they were dating and Sean was struggling to land a big law job, Lexi supported him without a complaint. She always told him, "If I was in my residency and you had your big job, you do the same. We just have to be patient, it will come, and one day we will laugh about it at our wedding." Lexi does enjoy expensive things, but she firmly believes that her fancy habits and tastes are hers to finance, never putting that burden on Sean. "I'm taking Lexi to my jeweler this Friday, and I'm incredibly excited to see her pick out her ring." Comments where Op has replied, "CTU, I am so happy for all of you. You are an amazing mill. I wish them all the luck. I know they will make great parents if they choose to have kids." Oop, funny story. Lexi has a nephew and always wanted to be a mom. She raises her nephew like her son. Sean never wanted kids. Changed his mind seeing Lexi with her nephew Mason, who also loves Sean a whole lot. "CTU, how do you do this? Every new thing you say just is more and more awesome and wholesome. Those two sound like amazing people and a great couple. I am so happy they found each other." Oop, me too. Resigned myself to never having hope for my son getting married and starting a family. He said law school ruined him. Then he started his master's and met Lexi Smile. Update 2, July 1st, 2024. Things have been moving along beautifully. Friday, Lexi has been looking at simple, plain bands with solitaires, ovals, pear, round, and my jeweler, Groovy Greg, has been taking notes on the pieces that caught her eye. Thankfully, when I was designing my new ring, she tried it on, and she's my size. On the flip side, Lexi got Sean's ring size from his best friend. She found a beautiful white gold band for Sean with their birthstones, sapphire. She even had it engraved, but she hasn't disclosed what it says. And yes, she had it designed by Groovy Greg as well. She is returning to pick it up in July. Saturday, I sent photos and notes to Sean from myself and Greg, and we are designing a white gold 1.5 carat solitaire, VVS, for Lexi. Ring should be ready for pickup in August. So things are rocking and rolling on both ends. I wish I could share this with my husband or ex-husband, but I know they'll spill the beans. Thank you for listening to this old lady talk about her updates. Additional information. Oop on her son's father being at the wedding. My son told me that his father is banned from speeches at the wedding too. He has a tendency to make things about himself and I would hate for him to ruin Lexi and Sean's beautiful day because he cannot shut up. Oop on if Lexi's mother knows about the proposals altogether. Her mother is aware of everything as well. So far we are the only two who know. Except for Reddit Smile. Update 3, August 5th, 2024. Lexi picked up the ring with me last Thursday, and she absolutely loves it. Since I never had a daughter, I asked her if we could go to the nail salon for manicures and pedicures before my family reunion. It was such a special bonding moment, and I couldn't help but gush to everyone who would listen about how proud I am of her and how much I love her. I even saw her tearing up a little. I've never had a good mother-in-law experience myself. My ex-mill pointed a loaded shotgun at my stomach when I was 6 months pregnant with Sean. Lexi has also had her share of a horrible mill, who would steal her money and speak poorly of her. It means the world to me that we can heal that wound for each other and build a loving relationship. Sean also visited me, and we had a family reunion. I accidentally referred to Lexi as his future fiancée to my boss. I'm a bit worried that one of them, Lexi or Sean, may have heard me slip up. Fingers crossed that I didn't spoil the surprise. Sean is set to pick up the ring in 2 weeks, and we're all so excited. September can't come soon enough. Comments where Op has replied. Baby, mama, magnet, women proposing is the generational change we need. Oop, you would not believe how many people believe it should be the other way around. Have received rude messages saying she's cucking him. I raised Sean to treat women as his equal. If he feels cucked then I failed him fundamentally. Stinston 555, I've been following since the first post. In a world with so much darkness and hate it warms my heart to read a post filled with love and joy. OP, when the engagements happen you will have to pay the ring tax. A photo of their ring fingers with their new rings on them. Until then keep smiling. Oop, will do. I promise to share her proposal book and artwork, with her permission of course, as well. Update 4, new update, September 13th, 2024. Lexi showed me her completed proposal book yesterday. The book is so beautiful and thoughtful. I know Sean is going to be blown away when he sees it. Meanwhile, Sean is still figuring out his proposal plan. He mentioned that the weather might mess with his original idea, so he's got a bit of reworking to do. I know he'll come up with something great. Had a little run-in with my ex-husband and his wife recently at a concert. Funny enough, he also suspects Sean will propose soon. We both agree that Sean's relationship with Lexi has always been different, so much more mature and meaningful than his past ones. His wife, however, wasn't too pleased. She's the only one who hasn't met Lexi yet, and she seemed a bit sour about it. She even pulled me aside to ask what Lexi is really like. I just told her the truth. Lexi is the perfect match for Sean. I would never speak poorly of her because, 1, there's nothing negative to say, and, 2, I've been in those shoes before, dealing with in-laws who weren't kind, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I'm just so excited for them. Hopefully, I'll be able to share photos of the art book after they've proposed already. Can't wait. Comments where Op has replied. Commenter, hopefully, the ex's wife won't be the mill from hell. Oop, my son had a tough time growing up because of her. Once she became his fiancée, things only got worse. She treated him poorly and constantly left him out. It got to the point where Sean would beg to come back home to me. One thing I'll never forget is when she told my ex that 11-year-old Sean couldn't be in her wedding because she didn't want any ugly people there. The fact that my ex went along with it made it even worse. Commenter, I am supposed he did not cut your ex out of his life as soon as he could. Being left out of the wedding is unforgivable, so do you think your ex will be excluded from your son's wedding? Oop, yup, we talked about it.